Welcome to the Latino podcast, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities with legal, political, and community leaders and visionaries. Let's get started.
Hey, Sean Gomez with another episode of the Latino, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities. We feature leading lawyers, judges, elected officials, business leaders, social activists, and influential leaders and members of our community. I'm joined today, as always, by David Arreguin, former podcast guest, now a member of Gomez Trial Attorneys, our team. He heads up our California border corridor practice, also manages our relationships with other lawyers. Welcome back, David. Always great to have you here.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure.
This episode, as always, is brought to you by your sponsor and host, Gomez Trial Attorneys. So talk to us a little bit about what we do here at Gomez Trial Attorneys, what sets us apart and makes us special, David.
So one of the things that John always says, we are binational, bicultural, and best in class. We say binational and bicultural because we offer the best legal representation in the English and the Spanish language. We have attorneys in-house who speak Spanish fluently, and of course, English. And also bicultural because we understand the region, our very unique Cali Baja region that, we are utilizing this term more consistently and more often now. And best in class just based on our track record, John's track record. So that sets us apart from a lot of the firms.
Thank you, sir. So very excited to have basically a high profile, almost, I'll say, celebrity guest today with us. Shows up in all put together, looking the part, always ready to go on TV. She's often on TV, a highly sought after commentator, a highly acclaimed immigration attorney, a proud Christian and believer, a business owner, entrepreneur, and a mom. And so we welcome today our guest, Esther Valdés Clayton, who is an immigration attorney from right here in San Diego. Welcome.
It is such an honor to be here. I've heard about you for years, and it's an honor just to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And so what we always like to do, because as we were discussing before out there, a lot of our listeners and viewers are maybe like kids that are thinking about going to law school. Hey, can I do it? Maybe I'm from the South Bay. I went to a public high school. Maybe, I'm not rich, so they might look to someone like you and go, hey, her story reminds me of myself. Maybe I can do this after all. Tell us about your upbringing, where you grew up and what got you going.
Yes. So I grew up here in a poor Latino household. My father was a pastor. He didn't earn a lot of money. I got a scholarship, as did my sisters, to go to a private Christian school when we were small. After that, I transferred to a public school. I graduated from Chula Vista High School, went to UCSD. I graduated with honors and went on to UC Berkeley as well, also another public school. But through it all, I think as a Latino lawyer, we know that we have to make it. Failure is not an option. And that's how I was raised. My parents always told us, we don't have money to give you, but we're going to give you your education. And that was my opportunity. And I'm a true believer that everybody gets time and chance. You just got to be ready to take it. And I was a risk taker since I was little. I always knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. I like to read. It was too dangerous to go outside. The apartment complex where we were raised, they literally had drug raids. There was a girl that was raped in the parking structure. We had ICE raids. Back then it was INS. I grew up around that heightened fear, and I think I still have that today. Like, I'm the mother of a female, and she's now an engineer, but when she was small, I was always afraid for her because that's how I grew up. So I think anything's possible if you set your mind to it. But those opportunities, especially that we live in a country where we have free public education, take it and never stop learning.
Amazing. We had yesterday, we actually had the Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid for Cal Western Law School. He previously had that job at USD. And like you were smart enough, or maybe your parents helped you or someone talked to you about the notion, because you said you grew up poor. You're in this, like, in old Chula Vista, going to Chula Vista High School, in this apartment. But, you found your way to UCSD, like an amazing university. A lot of kids, like, coming from where you came from would think, oh, we don't have the money for that. How am I going to do that? So how did you find your way over to UCSD?
It was really crazy. I knew I had to study hard. And then there were a lot of teachers who just said, there's this scholarship. Why don't you apply? I won a lot of scholarships, essay writing. I just hunkered down in my room. I didn't have any toys. I didn't have a computer. I had nothing to do, but I had books. So that's what I did. I applied for many scholarships. I won one in the the Spanish embassy. I was invited to Los Angeles to read my essay there. I won the Optimist, the Rotary. I mean, a slew of essays. I just went for it. And that's what when I talk to young people, especially from Latino, from impoverished background, I say, don't give up. Get what you have. The little that you have, turn it into something. And then it becomes more.
Amazing.
How do you find these scholarships? Because I feel like the people that I talk to in college or law school that come from, a Latino family, like they always have the questions like, okay, you're telling me to find a scholarship. How do you find them? Like, how do you go about like finding these scholarships, reaching out to, the Rotary or reaching out to one of these organizations?
I think a lot of my teachers saw that I was a really good student and I pressed in. We didn't even have money for sports. I remember I tried out for the tennis team and my dad told me, we don't have money for your uniform. I wanted to do running after school and he's like, I can't pick you up. I have to pick you up at 2:30. So there were very limited options. So my teacher saw I was pressing into the one thing that I could do. And they would offer me, hey, we just read about this. There was the internet. Back then we didn't have the internet, but now there is. You can Google them. You can talk to your teachers, your counselors, and whatever you're good at, apply yourself to that. That's where your win is. I think your major win.
I love the fact that you always wanted to be a lawyer. Where did that come from?
When I was 8 years old, I read a book about Abraham Lincoln. And again, growing up poor is really hard on kids. And I knew and I was aware of it. I went to a private school. I had 3 changes of clothing. I would alternate Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then on Tuesday, Thursday, I'd rotate whatever I had. Everybody else had really nice clothes going in. But, I was confident. Even back then, I was like, I came here to learn. I got to take this opportunity. So what if I'm teased or whatever? I read a book about Abraham Lincoln. I remember I read that he would go to school barefoot and in deerskin breeches. He had pants made out of leather because his parents couldn't afford clothes. Then when he grew up, he bought with 50 cents a barrel of law books. That's how he studied to be a lawyer. That's when I said, if he can do it and he can be poor and become a lawyer, I can do it too. I remember vividly reading that. And then I would go to the library. That was one of the free activities I could do. My dad would take us to the library and I would read books about him. I was like obsessed with him. I was like, he can do it and become president. I can too. Who knows?
Amazing. And the cool thing is up over your left shoulder, right up top is your guy, Abraham Lincoln. So, Honest Abe, look down, look who you inspired. You're a little taller than her, but she looked at you as an example, so that's pretty cool. And I will say for the record, she says she didn't have nice clothes. She comes in here very put together, everything matching, everything looking very nice. And so I imagine, I feel like, I grew up pretty poor. Mm-hmm. Myself. And one thing I'm very even to this day, cognizant of and appreciate is having like food at my house, like all the food I want, like anything I want to eat. And like when you don't have stuff when you're a kid, you so appreciate it when you grow up, huh?
Absolutely. And it's something that we have to calibrate, I think, as attorneys, because I was cognizant of that early on when I started practicing. I said, what do I want my practice to look like? I don't want to chase the money. It can't be about me. It's got to be about being excellent for my community, for other Latinos. And I'm the only lawyer in my family. I did not have aunts or uncles who came from a legal background. I was the outlier. It's only I had 3 older sisters. They're all teachers, my mom and dad. There was really nobody to help me. So I had to focus on that and make it about something bigger than just what I want to compensate for because I didn't have it. So I'm always still cognizant about that. And also because I dress up because I represent immigrants and I want to give them my best. They're used to being less than looked over, being oppressed, being paid under the table, and being taken for granted. When I walk in the room, I want to give them the dignity and respect that they don't get out there, out in the field where they're working, when they're cleaning up people's toilets. I give them that respect, and I think they appreciate that as well.
I love it. You know, we feel the same way. You know, we feel like we want to provide to them the same kind of legal representation and presence that like a Fortune 500 company would get. And so I admire that passion of yours and that commitment of yours. And so you go from UCSD to Berkeley Law School, where you are active, or you study immigration and asylum law. You're active in journals. Did you know you wanted to do this work even in law school?
No, I didn't want to because my dad was a Baptist pastor in San Isidro. So if you guys aren't familiar with San Diego, it's right at the border. He was dealing with this issue every single time and it bothered me. They would call him pastor. Detuvieron a mi esposo. Detuvieron a mi hijo. Arrestaron a mi hijo. Vaya a sacarlo en la cárcel. My dad was almost like their advocate all the time. So I hated it. I did not want to. But I happened upon it because I thought, I'd like to travel. I've never been able to afford to travel out of the United States. And this would let me travel. It's under the United Nations Convention. I can travel to Europe. So I started studying international law. And of course, a lot of immigration law has to do with international treaties. So that really intrigued me. And then I started delving into it. And sure enough, my first job as a law student was at an immigration practice in San Francisco. So from there, and being a Spanish speaker, it just segued. And then the religious persecution aspect, evangelical Christians back in the day were a minority even in Mexico. So that's one of the reasons why my parents came over to the United States. It was just hard for them. So I started taking cases in religious persecution that really intrigued me as well. And I still do to this day. I'm an affiliate of, I don't know if you have heard of Alliance Defending Freedom. They've made a couple of movies about this organization, God is Not Dead, etc. So I take pro bono cases on religious freedom on the side, just for a lot of persecuted Christians from places like China or Iraq or Iran that have to flee because of their beliefs or their origins. So that's always a little extra segment that I do because I enjoy it.
Amazing. And you had told us while we were in the boardroom kind of preparing that you were not only in law school, doing your thing, you were a young mother in law school. So if we've seen these movies about RBG, and so you're kind of like her, like, how is it, balance? For me, law school is so hard, like to have an infant and be a mom. Like how did that all work out?
So even though my dad was a pastor, I was the black sheep. I was partying in Tijuana. I was not having the Bible thing. I was not. I was counting the days to get out of it. I was a partier. Okay. I had high grades. I graduated with like a 3.9 from UCSD. I had high grades, but I liked the party. And I went on to UC Berkeley and I fell in love. And I tell my story because I know there's a lot of Latinas and Latinos here. It happens. You get pregnant and then the unexpected happens. You have the boyfriend that leaves you. And that's what happened. I never saw him again after I got pregnant 4 months in. So I had a huge decision to make. And I think that was like the inflection point for me. Do I keep the baby because I was under tremendous pressure to abort my daughter or not? And I realized it's like, God, I've worked so hard. I came out of like Section 8 housing. I got to Berkeley. Now I have a baby and I'm not going to end up with my job in New York. I had an offer to go to New York City already. For a girl from Section 8 housing, all my dreams are about to become true. And then I had this baby. I had to decide what to do. Right then, I think that's when I gave my life to Christ. And I said, God, if you will be the father to this little girl, I will honor you. I will do whatever you want me to do. And he was good. So I took a gap year and then I had to ask to go back and be readmitted to UC Berkeley. I finished my last year flying home every weekend to see my daughter. My parents took care of her while I flew in. I got my best grades ever the third year.
Oh, yeah.
Because exactly, you get it. Yeah, failure is not an option. I had no child support for the next 18 years. It was me and her, and God was faithful. I started a practice in 2012, and it's been multiplying. It's been me most of the time with maybe one other associate. With international recognition, I get interview requests from BBC, ITV. I've done Spanish language interviews for Telemundo, Univision, etc., and now Fox News and local channels. So, if you're faithful and you do the right thing when it matters, I think God blesses that.
Amazing. What a testimony.
Yeah, very honorable.
Thank you.
So, I mean, you mentioned all these, media stations that reach out to you. Is it mainly because they keep seeing you at different stations and they see how well versed you are in the immigration policy or how well you present? Is that one of the reasons?
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate all of that. Maybe I'll hire you for my social media. So I started practicing in 2003, and I'm speaking right now to the person that is plugging away at your job. Maybe you're in high school, maybe you're in college, and you feel that it doesn't matter. It does matter. When you're all alone and you're working hard and it's midnight and everyone's asleep and you're still studying, you're like, man, I should just give up. Don't do it. I started practicing in 2003. Then in 2013, I still remember, I had a case. And it was this man who was going to be imminently deported. I run to El Centro. I get him off the bus. I had gotten something approved from a judge. I don't even remember. And I get him off the bus before he heads to Mexico. His family calls a local TV station and they called me. They're like, can you tell us about this case? And then that spiraled into something else, more and more media requests, but they were always related to my cases that I was winning. The next time I got a call was because I won 9 asylum cases for a family that was fleeing from Mexico. The Union Tribune called as well. So a lot of it's just tied to work, and the representation, but it's my own clients are picking up the phone and saying, we need help. So, if you're thinking, but the timeline with that is important because from 2003, I'm raising a baby running back and forth from work. And all of my male bosses, they were the law firm owners. They were so gracious. They said, you can bring Paulina over. She can play under the desk. I thank them because I could never have been a lawyer and a mom, a single mom. Again, I never got child support. I never saw him again without their help. So this is like a true story of like paying it forward.
Yeah, that's, everything that's come out of your mouth so far is like an oh wow moment. I feel like you're going to inspire so many others to, don't give up. You have that grit about you. You have that can-do attitude about you, which I think counts more than anything.
I think Latinos, we have it. We have that endurance. We see our parents working hard. Maybe they don't spend a lot of time with us. I would tell my daughter, I can't be at that cheerleading practice. I can't be to the game. I never saw my daughter's games, but she knew I was working for her. And sometimes it's not time. And now I have all the time in the world. She's a successful engineer with a master's from Northeastern University in
Wow.
Boston. It is possible. If you're a single parent right now and you think, oh, my child's going to fall into drugs, that was my fear because she was home by herself. No, it is possible. And you can have the career too, and you can watch your child thrive. I think that's the biggest blessing for me in it, that I was able to have a career that's productive, but also see my daughter thrive by herself without her father. She's still never met her father.
Oh, wow. Well, you asked, your father in heaven to be
Amen.
her father, and it looks like you guys together did an amazing job, raising her.
That's right.
We were I watched some of your interviews on KUSI, which is a local news station, and Fox. I didn't get to the BBC stuff or Telemundo, but we were having a conversation out in the hallway about the fact that some believe, and I think ignorantly so, that every Latino feels the same way on every issue, and that maybe every Latino or Latina immigration attorney feels the same way about immigration law and who's a bad guy and who's not a bad guy. And so, there's been a lot of discussion recently about ICE, and ICE is terrible, and, they're doing all these terrible things. Where do you come down on all that? Like, what do you believe is broken in this country with regard to immigration, and what do we have to do to make it better?
So just as background, my parents came to Mexico and I was raised during the Ronald Reagan years. I love this country unabashedly. And I took an oath as a lawyer to uphold the laws and the Constitution of the United States of America. And I take that very personally. When I represent immigrants, it is to legalize, not to evade, not to obstruct. And certainly I'm not going to lie for you. I'm going to make your dreams come true, and I'm going to give you the dignity you don't have. I'm going to make the law work for you. So that's what I bring to the table. And I think a lot of blowback that I get, unfortunately, the reality is I get more pushback from other Latinos and Latino organizations because I am very emphatic about following the law. And I am very conservative because my Christian faith informs my politics. I am not a Democrat because I'm very pro-life. The story I gave about my daughter, that was an inflection point for me. Up to that point, I was pro-choice. But when I felt my daughter's heartbeat in my womb, I said, she's alive. I cannot kill this child. And what people miss about immigration is America has an immigration problem because we have an abortion problem. In 1973, since that time, we've had 67 million aborted children. Whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, just look at the numbers demographically. If you have 67 million missing Americans that would have been teachers, doctors, lawyers, agricultural workers, restaurant workers, you got to get them from somewhere. And once you look demographically at when immigration starts rising, it starts rising the minute Roe v. Wade is legalized in 1973. More Mexicans start coming, more Latin Americans, to the point that Latinos are now the largest minority group. We've overtaken African Americans in this country. African Americans have been here since the inception of the country, but we've been able to do it through immigration and through births. So it is very much tied hand in hand. And I think that's where I go rogue from a lot of the typical banter surrounding immigration that surrounds a lot of Latino immigration lawyers as well. And we get pressure to just think one way.
Right.
But I like to look at the bigger picture as well. Look at the demographics. Look at the fact that our country needs these workers because we need that population source. I mean, so, but again, unfortunately, a lot of the blowback comes from the very Latino communities. I think not because they want me to believe the same story, they don't want to hear the other side of the story.
Right.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, and you know, we as a people come from all kinds of backgrounds. Obviously, you know, Anglos are allowed to have different political opinions or beliefs. And you know, at times it feels like there could be a chilling influence, or you know, you're not a good person, or you don't like your culture. Obviously, from everything that you've said, like you're a very proud Latino, very proud of your roots, you know, proud of the people you represent. You know, we have something called the Hispanic National Bar Association.
Mhm.
I interviewed the president, who at the time was of Spanish descent, East Coast. Obviously, they have a lot of members and lawyers from the Caribbean, from Cuba, you know, from now Venezuela, you know, and even like you said, within the Mexican population, a lot people forget, you know, how religious, you know, a lot of we us are, and how strong those beliefs are, and particularly right, you know, to life, you know, and you know, pro-life, and that really, for many, is the single, you know, voting issue that they believe in, and that's consistent with the teachings of their church. And so, you know, we hope to be like, I think there's going to be kids listening. Not only they're thinking, can I go to law school, but thinking also like, you know, I like Donald Trump. You know, I like Marco Rubio. I like what they're doing in Venezuela. I know all my Venezuelan friends are very, very happy with what's going on there. And so, you know, thank you for being here, and for reminding us that this isn't just, we're not all the same.
I was in Mecha in high school. I was in Mecha at UCSD. I was in La Raza Law Journal at UC Berkeley. It was always the same message. And then when I became a lawyer, there was the Lawyers Club for Women here in San Diego. I had to celebrate Roe v. Wade being part of the law of the land back then. And I said, no, I'm not going to celebrate the murder of 65 million children. So definitely it leaves you out, but then you get to have that freedom, that creative freedom to express yourself. And if you're listening right now and you feel, wow, well, I don't really go along with those organizations, speak up, because we are not monolithic, especially I think as Mexican-American attorneys. We have the heritage of Cesar Chavez, and they have this pressure that we all have to be, you know, La Raza, and we got to take back Aslan. No, we don't. I'm sorry. I am an American. I am a proud American. I was raised here. These are the values that I want. This is where I want my daughter to be raised. This is my future, and I will pray for the blessing of this nation, because it is the only nation that offers complete freedom to a woman like myself. If I went back to Mexico, John, do you think I would, as a single mom, I would be a law firm owner and traveling around the world and giving interviews and conferences and living by myself with a young girl at home in relative security? No, it wouldn't happen, unfortunately.
Well, I think your English is good enough. You probably work in a call center for about $8 an hour.
Yes. Yes. So I thank God I live here in the United States. There's a reason why our parents came here, for better freedom, better opportunities. And there's a reason why I'm here and your listeners are listening, to make America a better place moving forward.
And so what do you think that we need to do in terms of immigration reform, like, and who needs to do it?
Both. The Republicans and the Democrats, we can't do it separately. We got to do it together. We need to tone down the angry rhetoric. I listen to a lot of podcasts as well. A lot of it's just very offensive, both for Latinos and Democrats. And I purposefully try to give people the dignity and respect that their political viewpoints deserve. But what I'm about is reform, not rage, not riots, not resistance. It does not help any immigrants. And I don't want any kind of purported assistance from a lot of liberals who just want to agitate my clients, because what it's creating is an atmosphere of fear. So if I were mayor, for example, of San Diego, I would rescind all of the sanctuary city policies. Sanctuary city policies is when the local police authorities apprehend a guy who has molested or hit his wife. They jail him up, and then they don't call ICE saying, hey, we've got somebody who's undocumented who just beat his wife. No, they release him back into the community. Then the wife is calling me and saying, Esther, regresó, lo soltaron. Pensé que lo iban a detener. I thought they were going to detain him, and now he's back. And she's got to run. That's what it does in reality. So if they would rescind sanctuary city policies and just turn over the criminal person directly over to ICE, guess what? Then we have ICE out of our communities. And then all those little placards that say ICE out of my community, we wouldn't have it because it's a peaceful transfer. That's an easy win. But I think where it becomes political is because Democrats want to weaponize Latinos so that we continue to vote for them. They have never met their promises to the Latino population. Donald Trump, I did not vote for him. I did not vote for him. And I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I just said neither one's acceptable to me. But what he is doing is delivering a focus on the Western Hemisphere where China and Russia were now dominant in Latin America. And that's why a lot of your Venezuelan friends are now really happy because now we have Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, focusing on the Western Hemisphere. The United States must be dominant and must be within the sphere of influence here for Latin Americans so that we can all thrive. And nobody should have to leave their native language or their native countries or their families. That's where the real family separation starts. In Honduras, in Guatemala, when the dad has to walk up to the United States and leave their family, and then they start another family over here. That's the injustice, the larger injustice that drives me nuts. It's like those are the stories that we have to tell. So when we talk about immigration reform, it starts at the border enforcement. We have a complete border shutdown right now. Legalize the DACA recipients, legalize the parents and the spouses of military spouses and wives, those who serve our country honorably, defending our nation's interests, foreign and domestic. I think every American would vote for that. And probably this one's probably the most controversial one, is rescind the 10-year bar. The 10-year bar is what a lot of what stops.
What does that mean?
The 10-year bar is when you enter the United States and you remain here more than 1 year unlawfully. The law under Bill Clinton that he enacted says you have to return and spend 10 years in your country of origin before you legalize. That's why there's so many people trapped here that they can't leave because they say, how am I going to leave my wife and my kids? I've already been here in America to stay out 10 years. Let's eliminate it. You will legalize maybe about 50 to 60% of people who are currently undocumented just doing those three things. It's not controversial. It's not rocket science. Let's just focus on that. Stop with the protests. Start writing to your congresswoman or congressional representative and fix the problem. I don't think they know what the problem is. And certainly, and I'm speaking to Democrats right now, they don't want the problem to be solved because we are a Latino electorate. We're getting larger and stronger by the day. You're one of the biggest leaders regionally, John. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, I've heard about you for years. Your voice matters. Once people start thinking different, that's when they start getting nervous. That's when we start promoting change and we get the revolution that we want. We want reform.
So we have this, what sounds to me like a very silly 10-year rule. We have, and I think you're right, we all would support legalization of those that have served our country and their spouses or
their spouses and their parents and DACA recipients. 1, 2, 3. Easy peasy, let's go.
Yeah, and with the 10-year ban, I feel like people don't follow it, right? And I think that's one of the issues because they generally come back. And then at that point, they can't really apply for legalization based on the fact that they violated the ban. Now they're in violation of U.S. law.
Yeah, and there's no path forward. You're exactly correct. So people go back, then they've got the 10-year bar. If you re-enter, then you've got what's known as a permanent bar. You can't legalize for 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So
and these are the people that are here.
They're already here and they cannot legalize. So as an attorney, I have to have the integrity to say, you either legalized or you go back home. There's other collateral ways to legalize U visas, VAWA, etc. But just fixing those three main things, and it really shows the integrity of our representatives because they don't want to fix it. I see it. It's almost like they want Latinos to be a permanent subclass. And I resist that. I will not be poor forever. I will not be in this poverty cycle forever. And if I had bought into like this whole resistance movement early on when I was in Mecha and La Raza, I don't think I'd be here today because breeds a lot of bitterness and resentment that they stole my land and I'm in Aslan and this belonged to Mexico. You know what? It's the U.S.'s. That's not my fight. That's not my battle. My battle is to focus on the here and now and make people's lives better for their future and for their children.
And when you talk about the interest of the current administration in Central South America, the Caribbean, and Marco Rubio's place in that, he is obviously, his story is one of an immigrant family from Cuba. And are you saying, I know China was putting a lot of money down there, a lot of influence. Are you saying, help those countries do better economically so that, the dad doesn't have to come up here? Is that what I heard?
No, we shouldn't provide any more financial assistance because it never gets down to the people. Yeah. It makes their relatives come over here to Fashion Valley and shop. They take the money. No, it's being able to create democracies and the revolution and the right to infrastructure so that they don't have to leave. That's what's happening in Venezuela. They don't want to leave their beautiful homeland, but they had to have one of the largest mass migrations that we've seen since Syria back in 2012. That happened in the Western Hemisphere because of this dictatorship. I think people need to get informed. Immigration isn't just about the emotional stories. We get a lot of these stories about this deported maid, deported soccer mom, deported pastor. Well, I love the law. Let's follow the law. And a lot of the journalists, they purposefully suppress that part where the law was violated and broken. And as an attorney, I have to have the integrity and honesty to say, I'm sorry, I can't legalize you. Don't give me your money. Don't give your money anywhere else if you want to. That's why there's a lot of immigration scams and a lot of immigrants get scammed because there's a lot of people peddling a product. And I rage against that, if anything. People fraudulently taking advantage of other immigrants during the lowest part of their lives.
And are you saying that, there are lawyers out there in the space, or maybe even non-lawyers, that, a case comes to you, maybe they're in violation of the 10-year. I mean, you see it and you go, there's no chance.
Correct.
I can't help you. I don't want your money. Unfortunately, are there lawyers and non-lawyers out there that will take that money?
John, I got to throw this back at you. You are one of the most prominent attorneys here in San Diego because you are ethical and honest. But that's not the reputation that we have as Latino attorneys, right? Unfortunately, a lot of the reputation that we have is that we prey on other Latinos because we speak the language, we speak their trust, we eat the same food, and then we rip them off. That's what I see time and time again. And I've sued other immigration attorneys successfully and gotten some disbarred who have stolen money and gotten that money back, clawed it back from people who are on the radio, people who aren't attorneys, people who purport to be attorneys, and get the money back. Imagine earning $8 an hour and paying $12,000 to legalize and then knowing that it's a fraud. Yeah, you better believe I'm going to get that money back. So I want to know from you when you're running for office.
No, thanks. I'll just keep doing what we're doing over here. But
I'm seeing it. I'm sorry, right above your head. I'm seeing that it's going to happen. It says we the people.
Yeah.
And then the eagle on top.
Well, maybe if we run together on the ticket, the Gomez Valdés ticket, then and we can add in David, and then we can it can be a cross-border election
effort.
So what about tell us? I'm curious about some of your pro bono work or representation of asylum seekers, based on faith. Where do these people come from? And you even said in Mexico, there was persecution and repression of evangelical Christian beliefs.
So the way it plays out in Mexico, that's very interesting to me. Mexican asylum cases have one of the lowest asylum approval rates. That's why it was headline news for the Union Tribune. Between 3 to 5% of people who claim fear of returning to Mexico actually win in asylum court to be able to say, I fear torture and persecution if I return. A lot of the people resisting the drug cartels, a lot of the women who didn't want to sell their bodies become the lover. A lot of the farmers that didn't want to grow the poppy or transport the marijuana, a lot of the soldiers who didn't want to transport or inform the cartels when the avocados were moving. Those are my clients. Guess what? Their faith informed their action. It was actually a religious persecution. On account of my faith, I said no to some of the most powerful cartel leaders, knowing it would cost me my life. Whether it was Nueva Generación, Los Tequileros, Los Zetas, I said no, knowing my daughter was going to be raped and kidnapped for 3 days and then delivered back to my home, knowing it would cost me my 2 sons who served in the military, knowing I would have to flee from Guerrero to Guadalajara to Tijuana hiding, knowing that I was going to have my mom's house burned and my sister's house burned because I would not become his lover. Those are my client stories. I don't know how they find me, but I would ask them, are you a Christian? Why did you take such a stance? And sure enough, it was, yes, I read my Bible and I said, I can't turn the blind eye. I will not give the bribe. So at that point, it becomes religious persecution. Those stories are so powerful. And that's what's happening in Mexico right now. I love Mexico. My relatives are down there. I can't visit them. It's one of the most violent places in the world. But I think a lot of the violence is spiritual. A lot of the violence against women, it has one of the highest femicide rates. The way they torture and mutilate women, it is completely demonic. And only the Spirit of Jesus Christ over that entire nation is going to deliver that nation. But the ones resisting are resisting in the power of the Holy Spirit.
Wow. We'll talk a little bit about, because, you're such an amazing guest because you speak to so many, important issues. So maybe we have some young listeners or even, older listeners like me who have strong beliefs, strong faith system, and, maybe think they can't be public about that or that that's not consistent with the successful practice of law. Talk to us about how faith inspires your work in life.
Well, I just walked into your office and I see that you guys give Bibles. You guys have weekly Bible studies. I think that is part of your success, John. And you have a biblical name, as do I, as do David. And, in the Bible, Esther, and my middle name is Ruth. It's one of the 2 females that have books named after them. Ruth was a migrant woman, and I'm not shy about acknowledging God in terms of my success or my successful representation. And one of the titles that Jesus Christ gives to himself is he is a wonderful and he is counselor. That's one of the names that we have as attorneys too. He's also an attorney and an advocate. It says in Hebrews that when Satan's accusing us of wrongdoing, he's there defending us. So I just take that upon myself. I'm like, God, help me to be more like you. So I get to share that with my clients. If I can't help them, I pray with them. I also give them Bibles as well. I point them to a good church because a lot of it is spiritual. I don't want to help somebody who's going to go back into drugs and go back to beat his wife. I want to go to the heart of the problem. Are you committed to making your life better? I can do the legal part and I'm going to do it well and I'm going to win. But you got to win at home. You got to be the dad. You got to be the mom those kids deserve because I'm not fighting your fight so I can be back here and have to bond you out. Once I get that commitment, I know I got a winner. So I think it's just such a blessing to be able to transform our community in that way as well. But I think the transformation is not political. It's going to be spiritual. And once Latinos start recognizing that our power is in our faith and in our families, we can radicalize and transform the Democrat Party because I think they take us for granted a lot. If you look at our representatives in the Democrats, not a lot of them are Latinos, but they claim to be representing us. Why aren't there more Latinos? Because we either don't have the money, the resources, or we get stymied. Can I be who I am with my faith and the Democrat Party? Well, we got to make that space. And we got to make that space for ourselves with the Republicans and say, you know what? Absolutely. My faith and my family are first, and this is how I'm going to vote. And that's when they're going to start respecting us.
Love it. So tell us, you're like, hey, look, I can help you, but as part of this deal, you got to represent, you got to live life right and do all the right things. Tell us, obviously without names, but a couple like good stories about some success stories you've had.
Wow. Well, it's certainly not an obligation, but I make it clear that I'm going to never lie. I expect the utmost in honesty and transparency from them. And there's grace in that too. I have a lot of clients that have rehabilitated their lives. I've had clients with 6 deportations get legalized. I have clients with 3 DUIs get legalized, and they walk out and they're like, that was unbelievable. To this date, with all of the deportation rates, I don't have a single client that's been detained or deported. We walk in, we pray, we give respect to where respect is due to the agent that's going to be there. I don't go in there with attitude. I go in there with deference, with humility, with the law by my side, ready to argue if I have to in a respectful tone. So we've been able to prevail. Here I have clients in Texas, Tennessee. I'm working on presidential pardons right now that we have the Trump administration that's amenable to hearing a lot of the claims of religiously persecuted people as well. So there's a lot of wins, and I post them a lot on my Facebook when people are just like thinking they're going in for the loss, but I see something that we can win. I had one case that had over 1 million views on, I think it was Univision National. It was a man who had been deported 3 times, and he was right here across the street. He was on the bus getting transferred over to Mexico for the 3rd time because he had a felony. And I asked them for the documents. I look in the margin of the documents, it said, the boy came from America and was adopted into a Mexican family. That meant that my client that had been deported was a U.S. citizen. I run over, they free him in 3 hours. We get him over, we go to the U.S. State Department, we track down his family. His family said, is that Angel? We'd been looking for him for 55 years.
Oh my gosh.
He's our older brother. Yes, he was born here in America. We find the hospital records.
No
He was
way.
a U.S. citizen. They give us a letter. We go into immigration. And when we go there, they just looked at all the documents, all the proof, the DNA samples, all of it. We find his dad was Puerto Rican. His mom was U.S. born. She was a migrant worker. And they just stand up and they said, here is your naturalization certificate. We're going to backdate it to the date of your birth. Case closed. It was a blessing for this man who had been deported. He made a lot of bad decisions in his life, some arrests. He had the marks of it. We thought, how do we win this? But it came down to the little margin on his birth certificate. So that's one that I'm very proud of. But, God's moving every day, especially right now where there's heightened fear. God wants to give people that comfort that says in Psalm 23, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. Whether I'm in Guatemala, in Mexico, whether I get deported, that house of the Lord, I'll live forever. There's a comfort that we can give as lawyers, but there's an extra comfort that God gives that they can take wherever they can go.
And you mentioned scammers earlier, and a lot of, our community getting scammed, especially on social media. You see it all the time. You see the comments. You don't need an attorney. You don't need a lawyer to fight this or to, file for naturalization or to file a petition. Like, what do you say to all those people saying that?
Yes. So unfortunately, I think as Latinos, we got to increase our reading rate. We got to turn off the Netflix. We got to read books. We got to read newspapers. We got to read magazines. We got to get information not from TikTok, not from, just little snippets here and there. We get carried away. We got to go back to just getting informed, good information from reliable sources, Telemundo, Univision, and looking at both sides of the story. There's a lot of scams going on. The economy may or may not lapse into a recession. You better believe it's hitting immigration attorneys as well. So they're getting quote unquote creative with the products that they're peddling to the Latino community. For example, a big one is, did you know you can get a T visa because you've been injured on the job and they mistreat you on the job? Did you know
a TV set?
A T visa for trafficking. Yeah, I know. It makes you chuckle, but that's because you went to Yale Law School. A lot of them are cleaning the floor and they're thinking, I got mistreated at work. Maybe I'll go to that attorney and he can get me a T visa. Another one is, Si te maltrata tu hijo mayor de edad y es ciudadano, puedes aplicar para una VAWA. You can get a visa for being the victim of domestic violence because your child mistreats you, abuses you. And under the law, yes, that's correct. But what attorneys are submitting are just like mild threats, or he doesn't want to really talk to me. That's where the scam comes in the fine print. They don't tell them the whole story or the success rate. So again, just get second and third opinions, and it's hard to find reliable, trustworthy sources. Keep looking for somebody that you trust. Maybe you don't have the time to read. That too is a luxury. Maybe you just come home and you just want to, just turn on TikTok just for fun. Then find somebody that you trust. It could be your priest. It could be your pastor. Hey, who would you recommend that I go to? The Bible says that there's wisdom in much counsel. Get a lot of second opinions just so you don't get scammed.
And so I know that you often, you're on TV and in the media, but also you speak to congregations. You're a resource for your church and church members. Talk to us a little bit about that in terms of being, like you said, counsel, as part of your calling.
That's right. So I have the privilege. I represent a lot of Latino evangelical organizations. I get invited to their congregations to speak at their churches. A lot of them don't have a lot of resources. So I host Know Your Rights presentations, workshops, DACA presentations, where they can do it themselves as much as possible to help them do it, save a little money, so then later on we can legalize you. So I host a lot of them. I've become good friends with a number of the pastors as well, help legalize their status as well. And it's all about building trust and being able to be there in the community. And I think you at the Gomez Law Firm do that really well. I've seen you at a lot of the same events. We helped victims' rights organizations as well to be able to give them, free access to legal care. I think there's not a lot of us Latino attorneys, and the more we're out there in the community, we can also inspire other people and say, hey, you can be a lawyer. I can help you, or I can represent you as well, ethically, honestly, and with excellence.
Amazing. Thank you for doing that. And so if our listeners, want to, see some of your stuff, on social media, where can they find you? What's the best place to look you up?
So I have a Facebook account. It's under my name, Esther Valdés Clayton, Valdés with an S. LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. And, if you don't agree with it, keep scrolling. Look at the analysis of it. I think a lot of us, we get enraged. We're very emotional and we get enraged. It's like, I don't like what she said. Well, why did I say it? What don't you like? Where's the facts? Where's the truth? Where am I wrong? Look at the bigger picture. I think that comes with a lot of why immigration has become so political, because we don't get the clear picture. I think this is a Latino moment right now. This is a huge opportunity for those of us in this sphere as Latino lawyers to say, you know what? We're going to take charge of this, because we hear the stories. You guys hear the stories doing personal injury and employment and wage, the theft, the oppression. This is all wrong and it's got to get fixed. And it doesn't get fixed when we obstruct and evade and encourage illegal immigration. It only gets fixed when you legalize somebody and give them their dignity back. So yes, it's all on social media as well. I should be on more social media outlets, but I travel back and forth to LA doing a lot of in-studio interviews as well.
We'll
so that takes up my
You're
time.
Pretty busy.
I try not to be. I do a 4-day work week, and then Fridays I recalibrate. Sunday I turn everything off. How about yourselves?
Oh man, I feel like I do a 7-day work week.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, as a business owner, for me, I'm never not working, but there's different levels. Like this weekend, I had the blessing of being able to hang out with my older kids. I have one kid at UCLA. I have a kid at a boarding school up in Santa Barbara. So I was able to hang out with them. And so was I working? Yeah, I'll check some emails and that kind of thing. But I like your 4-day. What do you like to do on Fridays?
I go to the gym, I go to the sauna, I go to the steam room, and yeah, I love to read news. I love the news. I've always enjoyed it since I was little. I'd wake up and watch Meet the Press before going to church on Sunday mornings. I just always enjoyed it. So it's, finding a balance and finding fun. I love to travel. I love going to Europe. I love to go visit cathedrals. I love Costa Rica. We go to Hawaii. So just enjoying things and thriving, you got to keep yourself sharp to give your best to your clients.
Totally agree. And so what I like to ask our guests, I got this originally from a podcast of a guy, Osotava, who's like a Mexican entrepreneur guy. But he always asks his guests, if you could write in the sky, some words for everyone to see and to live by, what message would you share? So what would your words be that you would write in the sky for all of us?
I would say, honor God, give God the glory. When things go well, recognize it's not that you did it. Don't be proud of what you've accomplished. God allowed you to accomplish it, and honor God. If you do things right, ethically, there's a blessing in it. And some of us get a little bitter, like, wow, why did my parents work so hard? They never had money. My parents were never homeowners. They died without, my dad died without ever owning a home. So, you think about it, but then they gave you success. They gave you that opportunity. We were their success story. So pay it forward. So honor God and give God the glory.
Love it. Can't think of a better way to end today's episode. We're so pleased to have you on.
Thank you.
I've definitely learned some things. I can be a little bit stern with ICE from time to time, but you've opened my eyes to some of the larger issues. And so thank you so much for that. Thank you for the amazing work you do. And thank you for doing it, and giving glory to he who deserves it and where it's best, recognized. So thank you so much. I want to hang out with you some more, because you're an amazing woman and leader and very inspirational. Thank you, David, as always.
Thank you, Esther, for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure. Yes. And thank you for having me here.
And so this concludes this episode of The Latino. If you like what you heard, please like us, share, follow us, and keep doing what's right. Take the lessons that we learned today, never give up, work hard, know that you can do whatever you want in this country. Let's remember the great blessings that our country and people give us, that you really can live the American dream. We have proof of it right here in this incredible lawyer and leader. And, I have a new sense of gratitude and faith after our conversation today. So thank you for that.
Thank you both. It was so exciting. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Latino podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.